do something, maybe get out of here.
Well, I mean, we're not used to having the chair here on time.
Oh, well, I see. All right, well, I deserve that. Or the traffic does, I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
I'm gonna blame the economy. Okay, so, welcome. Let's call to order this meeting of the District Board of Directors for Montara Water and Sanitary District. Today is February 5th, 2015, and the time is 7:40. Can we have a roll call, please?
Director Slater-Carter.
Present.
Director Harvey.
Here.
Director Boyd.
Here.
Director Wilson.
Here.
Director Huber.
Here.
Okay. Other than, I hope we all get through this storm this weekend intact. I have nothing for a president's statement. Do we have any oral comments for items not on the agenda? Okay, consent agenda. Would any directors like to pull anything for consideration? If not, can I have a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Catherine and Bill, all in favor?
Aye.
I hear unanimous, 5-0. Consent agenda is approved. Old business, item 1, review and possible action concerning appointment of board officers and committee assignments for 2015.
Yeah, so we had this item up at the last meeting on January 15, and the board found, I think we agreed actually on how to move forward. The intent was to leave the assignments as they were in 2014 with the agreement that changes for the calendar year 2016 be discussed starting in November. Director Wilson made a motion to that effect, but nobody seconded and there was no vote on it. So we ask now to ratify the intended action by repeating the motion, seconding the motion, and voting on it, please.
I am really hurt that I made that suggestion and no one seconded it.
And
I was sure I seconded it.
And let me
I'm sure
let me
you
just
did.
take responsibility. I should have caught that we didn't have a second, and well, here we go. So
But we were all unanimous, so
We
it
were.
was like the formality.
we're all like, yeah, whatever. All right, well, can I have a motion?
All right, I guess I made the motion. So, are you sure that just when we were just mumbling and you missed it in the tape?
No,
No.
there was no.
I already tried that.
Did you try that?
Yeah, I tried that. I said I'll listen to the tape. And they said they already did. No.
No, and you probably didn't listen to the tape. All right, I so moved.
Second. Second.
I hear a motion from Dwight and a second from Catherine. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
What was it
Thank
that
you,
Sarah
everyone.
Wan said about unanimous consent?
I don't remember. New business item 1, review and possible action concerning mid-year budget review.
Completely.
So we introduced over the past year further changes to our monthly financial reporting. First, we introduced the fund balance sheet and revenue and expenditure budget versus actual line items. We made some changes to those reports. We always brought those reports forward, but we renamed some line items during the last budget process and grouped them. All, I think, with some results that essentially make this really much more understandable for everyone in the district. We added a 12 months revenue and expenditure budget versus actual that was introduced some months ago, as well as an executive summary that highlights variances in the budget line items itself. And now we would introduce the mid-year budget review. This is something that comes from the preparation for the next fiscal year's budget cycle. Usually we wait until we have the data through March so that we can extrapolate the line items that where we depend on extrapolating so that we have enough data to do that. But at this point, I think it's a good time to take a look at where we are actually in our budget. And Peter's done the brunt of the work here and really took a close look at everything. And he's going to present this in a second. What I really wanted to the board to know, and I'm surprising you, Peter, let's see how you agree with this, but what I really want the board to understand is that we think in chunks of, a $2.5 million sewer budget, a $2 million water budget, but I think it's important for the board and public to understand that your staff really sees cash flow of $8 million plus. That is for this fiscal year. That's a $2.5 million annual sewer budget and CIP, $2.1 million for the water budget. There's an additional $2.2 million in this current fiscal year for the water tank that's being constructed in the CIP. So we're talking about actually $4.3 million in the water side. And on top of that, we see 1.1 million in GO bond funds. So I think that was, for me, really something that I thought after we had all the discussions. We had some discussions with the Finance Committee about this. We presented it to the Finance Committee. They reviewed the documents and recommended presentation at this meeting. Peter, if I can hand this over to you, and maybe you can explain the documents that you prepared.
Yeah, and as Clem was saying, this process, I proposed it to him near the beginning of the fiscal year, late August, September timeframe. Just building on my experience of last fiscal year, going through the budget. In my estimation, I believe we jumped on it later than I would have liked. And at that point, I was really starting to get back in the fold of things. So it was an uphill battle to start understanding a lot of the line items and the interconnections of a lot of the accounts. So a lot of time was spent with Clemens in the February, March, April timeframe, which for me personally is a very busy time for us. So my goal for this year was to kind of spearhead this earlier and take a look at things. We only have 6 months of data to digest, and even that 6 months, or that 6 month is a bit early. We're just presenting the December financials with this board packet, so that information really hasn't had a long time to digest. But with that being said, I just really wanted to jump on this soon. So going through this process, it will help begin planning the fiscal year's 15-16 budget. And that was really my goal, is to begin putting that template in place, try to understand how it's gone thus far through the year, and really get myself and Clemens kind of on the same page, in addition to the Finance Committee on board with proposed changes to the current year operation budget, and just get everybody kind of in the mindset of how we budget. So with that, moving on, the first page is Clemens included the timeline, which I thought would go toward the end, but at the beginning is absolutely fine. This kind of discusses just what my proposed goal is for this fiscal year's budget, starting with the mid-year budget presentation now, and going on through the different phases of the budget, similar to how we went through last year with. We had a budget workshop, mini meetings with the Finance Committee, and then going to final approval and the June meeting just in time for the 15-16 fiscal year, July 1. We included my initial first draft and did not include the Bartle Wells rate studies, but as Clemens discussed with me, that it's an intricate part of what we're going to be doing on an ongoing basis, and so we included that item, but the rest of it is my goals of what I hope to see happen in the next coming months.
Okay, so I don't know if this is the right time, but I'd like us to discuss this timeline when you're done. My concern is we've got 3 things coming up. We've got a rate study, we have a personnel study, but looking at retirement, and we have rates, and they're all convoluted. And I'm going to recommend for this group to consider a work study, because they're all going to come together and they're going to have a major impact on the overall assumptions. And so somewhere on here, I think we should schedule a work session.
Mm.
And so I'll just,
That was brought up at the finance committee meeting.
Okay.
And we both agreed that it was a good idea.
okay, I just didn't see it here, so I wanted to.
No, it wasn't, it was sort of put in as a nice to have.
Well, let's look at this maybe in detail here. We see that in the first meeting in March, we were hoping that we actually have information, have all the information ready that allows the presentation of the rate study. So if we have the three pieces together, then we might actually think about adding a specific workshop, essentially after the first meeting in March.
Okay, that'll make work for me. And I think that will give us all plenty of time to digest everything. So we're all on the same page, with it,
Mhm.
so great, thanks.
Okay. Moving on. The page 1 of the budget presentation. This was prepared just to kind of get everybody's in the right mindset of how we budget. It's not just strictly on an operations side. When I say operations, the traditional P&L income statement would capture most everything, but for the case of enterprise funds, they don't capture principal reductions and principal receptions of funds. So, but those have to be thought about when we're preparing the budget. As in interest expense, that would be a below the line item or below the line item which we budget for. But it doesn't speak to the long-term debt principal payment, which also has to be factored in. This presentation, I believe, gives a good indication of the actual inflows and outflows of cash throughout the fiscal year. And the items which we see on here which don't end up on the P&L are, like I said, the long-term debt principal reduction and the employee loan program, the receipt of principal for that. The interest gets captured in the interest income side, but the principal portion is, I have it here as a financing income. So this graphic really shows all items coming in and out of the district. So did this one for both sewer and water. For sewer, we had a overall budget cash flow positive of $229,000, which would go toward funding the capital and the operations reserve budget. Moving forward with the water side, same exact graphic. The difference here is the GO bonds, the in and out of the GO bond, the assessment receipts, and the outflows of which it's the in and the out. The water fund was financed this year for the Alta Vista tank. We called on the SRF loan of $2.2 million to help finance that capital project. For this one, the big ticket line item is just the capital improvement program of $3 million budgeted for 14-15. So once again, this graphic shows that beginning with operations. Actually, I should start with that for both sewer and water. But operations up top, positive cash flow here, that's $771,000. The investment cash flow, which like I said includes the capital improvement program, at negative $2 million, and then overall financing income over expenses of $1 million. Financed primarily through the SRF fund loans. So that is like I said, really just when Clement and I talked, this is kind of how was his mind as of how we need to think about the budget, not just on the P&L side of it.
And one important comment here is a footnote is that the $250,000 loss shown as loss are actually a carryover, so to speak, from the prior year. We still had $250,000 in the acquisition and improvement fund that essentially comes from the bond proceeds. So
Correct.
I like these 2 pages. I mean, it's something that I can just look at and understand it.
Do you like the color
I
too?
like the color. I mean, you know, it's cool.
Yeah.
Bet you don't get that very often from your consumer. Oh, this is cool.
No, I don't. It's mainly just the silly errors that I sometimes know page numbers and why didn't I press that spell check button? Come on, guy. Yeah, so I was sure to press it multiple times this time.
By
Sometimes.
the way, we did also have a discussion about having a blue for the water and green for the sewer.
No, it's a thank you to the finance committee who went over well, Clemens first of all, who we went over it first of all, gave him the presentation, and then once again with the finance committee, minor tweaks here and there, but just to come to what we're looking at now.
Yeah.
So, water. Now, moving on, beginning with the sewer enterprise fund, we have the revenue grouped by category. We don't have very many streams of revenue here for both sewer or water. The bulk of it is, of course, going to be sewer service charges. We also have the cell tower lease, various fees, property tax, and waste collection revenues. All of this, what we have is currently 6 months of data. I, for the most part, extrapolated that out to just for the full 12 months, basically just doubling what we had right now, and just to more or less project what we're going to have. But at the midway point, we're pretty much dead on target. 50% of revenues collected. Now on to the expense side of it. This is where I included a nice little graph. The graph for the revenues, I decided to pull that out because it looks silly. It was all sewer service charges and you couldn't read anything else. So that got nixed. Moving on to the expense side, the graph really I just wanted to present to the board just more or less how we budget operations on the sewer side. This is both done for both sewer and water, really showing that for the most part on the sewer side it's the SAM expenses is how we budget. That is the lion's share, followed by personnel afterwards. Now going to the actual numbers, midway through the year, bottom line total were relatively on target, 49%, midway through the year. So these are grouped by category. We budgeted approximately 50 to 60 line items on the sewer side. You guys see that in the monthly packets of the overall budget to actual for all accounts. This was my attempt to really kind of soften that and not put so much detail into what you guys look at, just to really for just ease of view for both me the presenter and for you guys the audience to see. These are the categories which I chose. These are pretty much created through the budget. We have various sums and items of that nature. So these were the impact areas. So once again, we're pretty much right on. You guys can look through here and see kind of where everything's at. For the most part, 48%. The one outlier here is the engineering expenses. That currently is at the midway point of the year, over budget. The finance committee noted this and would like us to investigate further. I agree with them wholeheartedly. Clemens as well. This is going to be a matter of just looking at the invoices for that line item, which both Clemens and I are in agreement that they're more than likely capital expenses that will be capitalized at fiscal year end. No matter what, though, they have to be paid. So they are paid. But when the invoices get examined, they may move down to the capital line item, which currently at this time is about 14% of budget. So midway through the year, it's far below budget, is what we think. But like I said, it hasn't been examined at this point. So that is an item that must be looked into a little further.
Right. In essence, we should see a slight increase in engineering cost over the past period, simply because we had, for example, the December storms, and the question is, what was that billing already included in this period for this? But what is also, I think, notable here is that the actual 13-14 is significantly higher than the 14-15 period. So we might have simply not budgeted correctly on this item. Could have happened as well.
Well, and in any event, engineering is only 2% of the
Yeah.
overall.
Right.
And given the weather patterns and so on, and the engineering, the fiscal committee, finance committee did discuss that sometimes we have opportunities that come up, given certain weather and certain constraints and so on. So, it can be, it should be looked at, but it's nothing, we didn't figure it was anything to get majorly concerned about, because engineering has to happen if you're running a district well.
Well, the other thing is the fact that the projected expenditures were exactly that, projected out. So we're at the 50% mark, we projected out 50% for the expenditures for the latter half of the year. And that may not be in fact correct, that in a number of these areas, those expenses could actually taper off instead of following the trend that they did for the first part of the year.
That's correct.
Absolutely. Now moving on to page 5. This is just general, just a budget to actual, a budget to projected actual, just showing side by side, just kind of see where we're at. Sewer Authority Midco side kind of skews this graph because you know, it's such a large chunk of what we do. But what I was looking to see here is more or less equal, falling in line. We don't ever want to beat our budget too much, and we don't want to be extremely over it as well. So what I'm looking for is to be relatively close and below budget is what I'm looking for here. So now moving on to the water side, same information displayed. On the water side, we have a relatively the same revenue categories minus the garbage. Minus the garbage. So at this point, we're not quite on budget. 48%. So when I say not quite, we're close, but we're below. But there are factors which play into this, and one big part of it is the Pillar Ridge, the operation at Pillar Ridge. When budget was created for 14-15, it was anticipated that those revenues would be seen beginning of the current fiscal year, July 1. And what has occurred is having operations not being taken over until January 1, and we won't be seeing revenue for those operations until about March. So that can account for a good chunk of why we're off in the major line item there, which is of course water sales. The rest of them are more or less minor in nature, but still a vital part of our operations, which of course, cell tower lease, fees again, property tax, and other. So this, like I said, we're not quite there, but we're tracking pretty well. Now moving on to the expense side of it, again, the same graphic, you'll see here that operation-wise, we budget toward personnel. Personnel is the big expense facing the Water Enterprise Fund at close to 50%, with professional services and other coming in second and third with 12 and 11% respectively. And once again, looking at this, I was very happy to see that all said and done, we are 41% of budget. Clemens, I think, with all of the district, is doing a very good job of controlling costs midway through the year. And I think it shows in this graphic that just far as most every line item is at or below budget, with a couple outliers here and there, but for the most part though, most items are below budget. So this graph will show the percentage to date in the various group categories, which which were created, and also the very last few pages, you can see the roll up for the different groupings on the revenue side. 'Cause like I said, we budget close to 60 accounts. You guys see them on a monthly basis. This way, I think, is a little bit easier to digest.
On the expenditure side, on the water side, the same is true as for the revenues. Pillar Ridge was budgeted from starting July 1, but we started operating in January 1. So some of that, the low budget, is due to the lack of expenses on the Pillar Ridge side there.
Okay.
And the other one is the fact that with personnel, you're running leaner than you'd like at this point, right?
Yeah, thank you, Bill, for that.
Yeah, so that,
Yes, we see increased overtime at this time. That's it's simply due to leaks, other things, but mainly due to how we operate the water system right now, prioritizing certain sources over others, and that requires overtime, but saves us significant money on water extraction fees that we save, that we would have to pay on the other end.
I
Yeah.
would much rather pay overtime to our staff than water extraction fees to
Right.
others.
And you see, yeah, the supply line item, about 6 down, is currently 20% of budget. It had been anticipated that there would be large costs for both the airport wells, for those purchases, as well as other supply avenues, and we just haven't seen them yet. So, once again, back to Clint's point, we're paying for the personnel as opposed to the actual purchases of supply.
Can I ask a question? Is there anywhere in here a line item for overtime percentage of pay?
Not in this presentation. If you go to the regular consent items, you will see in our.
No, it's not in the budget itself either. It's actually, when we budget, we have a schedule that we submit with it, with that line item, that explains how much overtime we anticipate for the next year.
Yeah.
So,
Currently, as of 12/31, it is at close to 60% of what was budgeted. So that's high, but on the flip side of it,
But it's
though,
only
staff
10%
time is only at 44%. So that exhibits the shorthandedness of which we're operating
So
at
we're
this point.
10% over on one side and 6% under on
But
the
but
other.
is the overtime percentage typical for this size district and for this budget? The percent of overtime given?
At this point, over budget, close to 8%.
it's close to very normal.
Yes.
It's normal.
Yes.
It's normal.
Increased,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
It's
close.
But I mean, it's normal for a district of this type.
Well, right now, we're in a transition too, with having brought Pillar Ridge on, so we'll be able to hire more people full-time and
Yeah.
switch that equation around, but Clemens has decided we needed more in terms of labor, so we
Sure,
can save
no,
money on
yeah.
the
Yeah, yeah.
water purchases side.
Okay, thank you.
We've long contended having such a small staff. When we need incrementally more, do you hire or do you just pay overtime? And oftentimes the smart move is to pay the overtime rather than incur the ongoing, larger unit expense for
Right.
additional staffers. So it's
And
that's
it's
the kind of
also-
thing that from time to time we've given some real thought to. Sometimes it's hire, sometimes it's pay overtime.
Well, what we saw with the fire district problems was that they were relying on overtime entirely.
Mhm.
And it was leading to burnout, and I don't think Clemens would do that with our crew.
Thank
Right,
you.
that's the flip side of that, and we're going through an assessment at this time, as was mentioned earlier, and are going to look at our staffing needs very soon.
Right.
we'll probably see some change.
Good.
Yeah, and to your question, as far the percentage of overtime to actual staff wages is about 13%, which I don't think is too high. I couldn't tell you as far as what is
No,
what it looks like
no.
across the board for district your size, but as far as it's not a huge number.
Oh, good.
Considering what you guys are dealing with at this point, having somebody leave at the beginning of the fiscal year and really not replacing that person thus far.
Well,
I think it's pretty
great.
It's pretty clear that we're going to see the overall number down, but as a symptom of that, overtime is going to be up. It's just going to be the way our staff is spread thin at this point.
Okay, thank you.
It's-
Very good.
And I'm gonna kind of continue talking here a little bit. We see the biggest infrastructure project that this community has seen ever is implemented right now. So we see a lot of staff time going towards tank construction. Yes, we have outside project management, the SRT, but our staff has to be there every day. They're the ones that respond if the pipe's not where it's supposed to be. And we're trying to find solutions for the large construction up there every day. The permitting, inside of the internal permitting for remodels, new construction projects has increased dramatically. That's something that I wanted to bring up in the manager's report, but I think is a good opportunity here. We have currently also increased turnaround time for permits. I think that's something that's important for everyone to know that.
We put the sign on the door as you walk in.
Yeah, you see, we had to put up signs essentially saying that we need a little bit more time to be doing a good job and reviewing the plans that are submitted, the applications that are submitted. So we won't be able to turn those around. We usually really try to get this done within 1, 2, 3 days. Right now, we need more turnaround time, and we talk to everyone individually and let them know that there is a demand has increased drastically.
Okay, good.
So Clemens, you say you need more time. You said the turnaround before was just a couple of days. What are you looking at now for turnaround time?
Well, what we have actually in the application packet, we're asking for 2 weeks. And, we might be able to get most turned around within 4 or 5 days, but we might see, some where we have to, look at, a turnaround time of around 2 weeks.
So then when they get the packet, their expectation is it'll be about a 2-week process. And if you can still beat that, then you're okay, right?
Yes.
But I think his bigger issue is that, yeah, you're okay, but I think to his point, we've got 2 issues that this district's being challenged about. One is the issue of the high turnover because of our pay issues that we've talked about previously. Then we've got the second issue that we've increased the workload of this group to where they're sort of deadly. And I think that one of the issues that we need to kind of address is, I think we have to give our manager the right to be able to hire based on what is before him. And so that part of the work study and my part is to look at that discretionary capacity to be able to do that. So if you have a surge of work, whether it's the tank or whether it's we got doubling of the permits or whatever it might be, I think we've got to look at discretionary capacity for him to adjust it from his hiring.
Sure.
And that's what that, I think, is alluding to in this presentation.
Thank you.
Well, I think if you think that's going to be an ongoing problem, but it takes training, you can't just put somebody in and ask them to review these permits.
No, but what I'm trying to say is you're absolutely right. I mean, anytime you're looking at hiring or looking at orientation or anything goes with it, I'm just suggesting that we look at allowing him the capacity to adjust staffing based on demand. And
Oh, absolutely.
That's really what that's.
And what I hear you saying is that we shouldn't feel like the budget that was created in a crystal ball, not knowing things that were going to happen, is ironclad and it can't be exceeded or
Exactly.
manipulated.
Exactly. It shouldn't be a restricted
It
document.
should not, yes.
Thanks for the clarification.
All right, guys. Moving on. Yeah, the next page, page 8 now. Once again, the same graphic that was displayed for sewer, really just showing budget to actual projected. This one is a bit more stark in the differences. All on the good side being our budget is more than what are the projected expenditures.
Oh.
So. Once it-
And we put all these graphics together instead of just all the numbers like we have been doing, because I want to be able to show this to neighbors who might not read budgets all that much or even care to read budgets. But when they ask me how the finances are going on the district, I want to be able to give them something that they understand. Because so many people have a personal involvement in what's going on here, beyond just turning on the tap or opening the drain.
Yes. Okay. Now moving on, page 9. I believe 9 and 10 are pretty neat comparisons. They are just snapshots of 12/31 or 7/1/24. Beginning of the fiscal year activities, so 7/1 to 12/31 for fiscal year 13-14 and the current year 14-15, side by side, just to kind of see that snapshot at that time, how we did 6 months into the fiscal year using only 6 months of data, see where we're at. I believe this to be just pretty neat, just to kind of see just how we're doing over last year. So I don't know if you guys had some time to review this, but I did this for both sewer and water. Kind of go through and just kind of see just where we're at. This is on the expense side. I gave a little bit more detail as opposed to just the 7 group categories.
Yeah.
Just because it's kind of nice in this graphic to see more than less, I believe. So the line items on the revenue side, you can really see sewer service charges is the big jump. Everything else kind of on par. On the expense side, engineering, of course, that we talked about earlier, that's a bit high. It needs some more investigation, and we'll be looking into that. Going on down, the big number is always going to be SAM, and that currently is 20,000 less, and that would be, for the most part, we know of these SAM numbers at the beginning of the fiscal year, and those are budgeted, but it's the when items go down in what I see, there are lift station expenses that are paid for by the district which aren't budgeted for. They kind of just come via invoice and they're paid, and that is something that we cannot budget for. So that's the sewer side. Oh, also too, the connection fees. I mean that is the biggest jump you'll see on the sewer side, over $100,000 increase from last year to this year. I think that goes back to what Clement was saying as far as increased demand, increased stress on our staff is what you'll see here with that number. On the water side, going through it, water sales up 200K.
I just have a simple question.
Yes.
I'm looking at these are minor items, but I noticed the board of directors was split evenly between the two this year, but not last year. And I noticed LAFCO's got different allocations for each of the sides. Is there a rationale for how you decide how much goes each direction for those items?
So real quick, for LAFCO, I can say yes, there is. There's a different assessment based on our sewer budget.
Okay.
And
So it's
for
just a
LAFCO,
budget,
and
it's
then-
just a budget percentage?
Yes, it's based on budget percentage, and LAFCO splits it up in sewer and water.
Okay, fair enough.
So
However,
that-
LAFCO is having a discussion on that. I'll tell you about it when we get to reports.
And quite frankly, to the board of directors, I have no idea. It should be split 50-50.
Okay, I noticed that this year it is and last year it wasn't. I'm just kind of curious. Again, it's not a huge amount of money and not worth spending any time on. I'm just curious as to what
Maybe you were talking more about sewer issues last year than last year. I don't know.
Based on, yeah.
Sorry.
That is
If it's
curious.
not on
though.
time,
It is.
does that charge the sewer more than if he's late?
This
or
is,
how
this
does
is
that
all
work?
about the hot air distribution.
Judy has a clock, and when we're talking sewer issues, she clocks us in, and when we're talking water issues, she clocks
Just
us in.
clock.
Well, I'm wondering what happened to the cost that we didn't have a second for that one. Okay.
How do we allocate the time for this discussion?
Sorry, Patty, you brought it up.
And,
Oh, we need the hot
I thought
air
we'd
one.
get there.
and then once again, the connection fee. I mean, that is really just the large increase. Once again, close to $80,000 on the water side is huge. The one that kind of skews this is the geo bond assessment. We received the property tax payment, the big one, in December. It may not have been booked, or that may not have come in until January of last year. So that's where you'll see that bit of a difference there. But for the most part, if you were to count that one, it's pretty much on par. That's the in and the out. We get what we need to pay the debt, and it's done with. Okay. So like I said, snapshots of 6 months of data, last fiscal year to the current fiscal year. Now moving on, page 11 now. This is what I've been working with Clemens as far as the new budget presentation. Hopefully you guys don't hear that very much, but last year when we went through this process, I was given a budget as far as this is what it's going to look like, and this are the parameters in which we have to work with. I didn't like it. There were a lot of summations, and it was for the user very very hard to work with it in terms of just an Excel spreadsheet, summations, subtotals, capturing introducing a line, deleting a lines, really throwing the whole thing off. I decided to go using the Sewer Authority Mid-Coastside's budget, going online and seeing theirs, and I kind of liked how their presentation was in terms of operations, just listing everything out and then just having the one bottom line total of what we're operating expenditures. When you guys get your monthly packets, it's broken out in the way that your guys' financial system, QuickBooks, has it broken out, so you'll see the various subtotals for the 3 line items that make up pumping, or the 3 line, or the 7 line items which make up professional services. I decided to do away with all those subtotals and just show it in its bulk form, every single operating expense that we have. So the columns that I have currently, 12-13 actual, 13-14 actual, and then approved budget for 14-15 expenditures to date, that percentage at the midway point, and then projected out. For the most part, they're all just doubled. Not all of them were, because some that I went through this and say for line item memberships, if we were to double that one, it would just completely blow it up. But at this point, we pretty much paid all the membership expenses, so we won't be seeing those as time goes on. And then the projected as a percentage of revenue. This PDF is actually some lines hidden, but what I've done is created the 15-16 operation, the projected budget amount, and that percentage change there. Those are all hidden lines, but this was just to show that this is what I'm projecting the budget to look like in terms of visual. This is what it's going to look like this year, going this route as opposed to the way it was last year, which I believe to be too much detail for the user to digest at any given time, and very hard to follow, I believe. I may be incorrect in that, but
No, you're right.
I didn't. Okay.
You're correct.
All right. I want to make this process as easy and user friendly for all parties, and I believe we're taking steps to get there. This is going to be the first big step of moving that direction, and then hopefully simplifying monthly statements for you guys is going to be the next progression. But this is what I have currently for both sewer, and you'll see 2 pages of sewer, and then after that the 3 pages of water, same format. Like I said, easy line items as far as bottom line, total operating revenue, total operating expenditures, getting those numbers, not having the various subtotals involved, and just saying, this group here, some drag it down. It's very, very easy for me, and I said also hopefully easy for you guys to understand.
So, if I may interject here, I think what we're seeing here is that, is a quality of support that the district never had before.
That's right.
And I'm happy to, take all the blame for what Peter said about the prior budget, because, before this was all in essentially my hands. And I'm very happy to see that this is now the second year that Peter is going through the process. Last year he was kind of thrown into it and had to help us follow along. But I think it really shows how much he is understanding what we are doing on.
Clemens,
on the
I
district.
believe you and the board members all decided that we needed to look at updating our accounting, and that was why we settled on Mays, because we'd been with the same accountant for so many years and things had gotten habitual and routine and they weren't clear for the public.
Right.
And I think Mays has been excellent in first getting a strong grasp on what we had, and now making it more available and transparent for the public as a whole, which is what districts should be working for, and every district relies on its finances, and so I think what you're putting in, and you and the finance committee are putting into practice is a very good thing. But Clemens, it's all your fault. You're right.
It always is. I'm used to that.
Well, it's your fault. It's your
Well-
fault that we have these improvements. So
That's right.
So
Right, thank you. I'm really
positive.
happy.
It's a positive thing.
Great, thanks. But I'm happy to see that, how actually Peter works with our numbers and how he understands them. Thank you.
I thank you guys.
I with Dwight's forgiveness, I'd again like to make a thank you, Peter and Clemens and the financial committee for doing this, and this is extremely clear. You've done a great job, and you speak very well, and I'm really happy with this. And like Catherine says, we can bring these papers and show them to people and have people understand. I'm not a budget person, but I'm really happy. So it's very nice. Thank you.
Yeah, my friends who are school teachers and janitors and nurses and so on, I can show them this and they'll go, oh, good. And then we'll start talking about other stuff.
So Jim, the truth be told is the finance committee shouldn't get any credit for this except for the fact that we went along with it, but Peter's the one who really
Well-
should be getting most of the credit for this.
Or maybe we can have further discussions of the colors for the wires.
Maybe we could get a rainbow in there.
No, but I think that this is actually an important area, and
No,
I
you-
think that Peter, you handled this very
I
well.
mean, the finance committee's worked hard too on this. You guys have done a great job, and thanks.
Well,
And also Judy.
yes. Awesome, Judy.
Thank Judy for her work.
This really concludes the presentation. I was just going to be open to any questions, but at this point, with just seeing the smiles and the praise, I think I should probably cut out of here. Or somewhere
That'll be a good time to cut
It's-
out.
it's time to go.
Take the win. Yeah.
Where it's all pulled away from me. But yeah.
Honestly, I think this is the fewest questions we've had, because the presentation is so clear. I really appreciate it.
Thank you guys. Thank you all.
Thank you.
And do drive carefully, I hear the wind is kicking up tonight. We'd hate to have to educate another guy.
Yeah.
But you've got the lessons laid out here, so.
The template is in place.
I hate to be the
Oh, yes.
play in the election here, but the next item is the ERAP fund.
Yeah, maybe when I
Should,
stay for this,
Oh.
No.
just to see where.
I tried, Peter. Just remember, I tried.
And this one is my fault.
All right. New business item 2, review and possible action concerning receipt and accounting of excess education revenue augmentation fund check. Our old friend ERAF. Thank you, Sacramento.
Okay, so what Peter hasn't
Wasn't your
mentioned in the
fault.
6 months finance review is that we just received a check over $210,000, and that is the district share of this year's ERAF distribution. And ERAF stands for Education Revenue and Augmentation Fund.
We will need you on this, Dave.
And essentially that's the district gets a certain share of the 1% property taxes that are collected in our district, and the state has been withholding a certain amount of those since 1997, and I'm not sure what actually the explanation for ERAF. When we're going through the budget process, it's always very unclear on how much money we actually going to receive any given fiscal year. It's somewhat random, or goes through frequent changes how they're distributing the money. So, for example, this year we're receiving portions from our property taxes that was withheld in 2011, 2012, as well as
2013 is missing.
14 and 15, yes, 13 is missing, okay. All right, so that was everything for 11, 12, but we will see future distributions from the years 14 and 15 because they haven't given us everything. So they also announced that going forward, that the balances will be for one fiscal year only. So nobody knows what this means except that it's not going to be that much going forward. So we won't see the $200,000 check that we saw this year. And was it last year or the year before we saw also a significant check. And in our discussion with the Finance Committee, we shared the happy news with them that we have now an excess $210,000. In the past, the district, so again, these are essentially property taxes that we receive now that we were supposed to receive in prior years. Since the district purchased the water system in '03, for most of the years, the property taxes were split 50-50. There were at least one year where this was not the case, where the board actually went a different direction and split it, not 50-50, it was a different distribution. So right now, during the discussion with the Finance Committee, essentially it was suggested that due to the increased cash demands on the water side this year, that this $210,000 be deposited into the water fund. So the recommendation that staff makes is to authorize the deposit of the excess ERAF distribution into the water fund. And maybe I can hand this to the Finance Committee, and you guys can maybe share your thoughts on this, Catherine, Bill.
Okay, so the first one is that, do we have the legal authority to be able to either split it in half or not split it in half? Do we have that discretion?
You do.
On how we allocate it?
Yes.
Okay, so if we have the discretion on how to allocate it, is, we are a water sanitary district, that's what our name is. We also have, solid waste responsibilities. But to run the district as effectively as possible, to utilize our financial resources properly, that it seems to me that that money should be allocated in whichever way is in the district's best interests, and that there's nothing, let's say, magical about splitting it 50-50, because at certain times that the sewer side may require, it would make better use of that money At other times, the water side would make better use of that money. And so that it becomes, to me, really an issue of how do you manage that money most effectively. And at this point in time, it seems like to me we've got a major capitalization project. And so we're basically paying for that in a number of ways. We have some money going forward. We're paying for it partially out of net income from the water side. We also have that bond, or not bond, but the loan. And so that if we allocate that more towards the water side, or as the staff is recommending, all of it towards the water side, it enables us to reduce the amount of interest that we would need to pay over time, because we could basically pay that down faster.
So you're saying the water side needs more than the sewer side?
Yeah.
Okay.
In a long way out, that's exactly what I'm saying. And I think, and I feel that that's legitimate.
Okay. That was my ear of it.
Well, then I express it properly. Okay.
I heard Bill say something else as well, and that was that he thinks that in the future, the sewer side might actually be at a point where it needs more support.
Be it because of specialized pumping requirements, recycled water, who knows?
I'm glad you mentioned that.
The idea of possibly, package plant at some point, that kind of stuff. So, it's not always gonna be just water. It could potentially be sewer in the future.
I think you said it exactly. It's to our discretion to spend it in what we all agree, or the majority agrees, is in the best interest of the district. And at this point in time, this huge, exciting project for our water storage is very necessary, and this board has always been, worked hard to keep our debt down. It's good for our credit rating. The last credit rating, our credit rating actually went up. We were one of the few special, or government agencies in California that had that happen. And it's because of these kinds of policies. So rather than going on and on, let's just authorize the deposit of the excess ERAF distribution into the water fund.
So is that a motion?
That's a motion.
I'll second it.
So, discussion, Jim, did you want to pitch in?
No, that's not fine, thank you.
Okay. So, moved by Catherine, seconded by Bill. Did I get that right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
So you didn't have to stay after, I could have been driving down that highway.
Thank you. All right, item 3, review and possible action concerning approval of 2 exploratory well boreholes in the Montara Caltrans right-of-way.
Okay, so starting in 2012, we negotiated with Caltrans to get a right of entry to what is called the Montara Caltrans right-of-way. That is the property that was essentially purchased by Caltrans to build a multi-lane highway and connect the coast side to the other side of the hill. And that was opposed by the local citizens. Instead, the Devil's Slide Tunnel was suggested as a better
And
solution.
the entire county.
That's
And
true.
the entire county.
Yes.
It was a vote of the entire county.
Oh, okay.
74% of voters in Sanitary County who voted on Measure T voted
Wow,
to,
I did not know that.
yes. Yeah, I knocked on a bunch of doors on the other side of the hill.
So did I.
It was surprising just how many people were plenty happy to try to protect the coastline. So, and it was. I should mention it was enjoyable the day after the election, seeing that Caltrans came around very quickly and agreed with us. So that was, it's all good. We're all friends now.
So in essence, what this Caltrans right-of-way for us is actually a really good opportunity, because It is essentially our second pristine, unspoiled property that we have. We have Montara Mountain, we have the right-of-way that is directly connected to this area. So from a watershed perspective, this is ideal. It's has a high likelihood that we can find very good quality water in this property. We are allowed to drill up to 5 exploratory boreholes in the Caltrans right-of-way. The permit is good for 1 year. We now are asking to start with 2 exploratory wells. They are in the Upper Cedar Street area.
So site A,
Site A and B, they are.
oh, okay.
And it's actually interesting, we have everything ready to go. We have, essentially, the big problem for us was to get a drill rig out. We have the driller now lined up and available to perform the work, hopefully, this is true. We have also the additional necessary permits to start the Caltrans exploration. On top of the right of entry, we needed a signature from Caltrans. That was actually turned around very fast. What we also needed was a signature from the county on the, it was actually a county permit. We needed a county permit for the exploratory boreholes. And we submitted the application last Thursday, I believe it was. And on Monday, I had the signed permit on my desk. So I have to thank the county for this fast turnaround. And so the way we've done this is we actually got 3 quotes from 3 different companies. We have, the lowest quote was submitted by Montara Brothers, and it's significantly lower than the other companies, Tabor and Pitcher. The permit has specific requirements in regards to the drilling equipment. It specifies exactly what type of rig needs to be used, what hours can be drilled at, and many details are actually listed in the permit. Montara Brothers is the only one that can fulfill these drilling requirements. On top of that, we have in the past sole sourced all exploratory drilling projects to Montara Brothers. Actually, I believe all drilling projects to Montara Brothers, due to their highly experienced personnel. It's not as straightforward to operate a drill rig, specifically when it comes to exploratory drillings. We have very good experience with their operators. They've been providing excellent service to us.
Are they the ones that we drilled the Alta Vista well?
Yes.
Okay.
They've drilled
They
all
have drilled
Yeah.
everything in
Yeah.
the district.
Yeah.
And I mean, every time we go out, we're trying to find an alternative company, and we sometimes have a hard time. Now we actually receive. In the past, we never received other quotes, other bids, essentially. But this time, we have something from Tabor and Pitcher, but it's really more expensive, different equipment. So due to that, we suggest to sole source the 2 exploratory borehole project to Montara Brothers. We budgeted $150,000 in this fiscal year's CIP on water exploration. What staff is now asking for is authorization of up to $60,000 for the 2 exploratory boreholes. We have a quote for 1 hole comes up to $23,400. So let's say call it $25,000 times 2 would be $50,000. But all this depends really on the depth of the drilling. So what we're asking for is the authorization of $60,000 of those budgeted water exploration funds. We thought we would spend $150,000.
So I have a question for you. Is there any reason that you might want to take advantage of a 3rd hole depending on what the first 2 come out? I mean, are you limiting yourself to other options by that suggestion?
Definitely do, but my thought in this regard was that we can simply bring this up at another meeting if we decide going forward with a third.
I mean, would the drillers wait around for another meeting? If you indeed think there's a third one. I mean, what I'm trying to say is, you had a $150,000 budget, you're getting it for 60. I mean, I would recommend you might modify that suggestion and give you some options in case you have taken advantage of an opportunity that might come up through these explorations.
I agree entirely.
Okay,
I'd go for 6.
so I'm modifying my,
I mean, you might as well, I mean, I hate to have you come back for something which is obvious, given what you may not know from the explorations.
okay.
No,
then
but the transit costs, the setup costs,
That's
that
fine,
kind
yeah,
of thing,
Exactly.
it adds up.
Well, we have the permits for the 2 holes right
Right.
now. That's why I'm going.
Well, if we've
you know,
got the
for
permits for 2, quick,
For the
get the
2
other
bore
4.
holes, but we might be able to get this as well, a fast turnaround. The board will be informed about the progress of the drilling, and then, I mean, if the board agrees to this, I would recommend then to authorize up to the $150,000 budgeted in this year's CIP, waiving the formal bidding requirements on the ground that the personnel and associated equipment for the work are available from the sole source as well.
And there's a track record of it.
But they only
With
want-
Magora?
Yeah.
Oh, they've done all our
Yeah.
testing.
Yes.
And balance hydrologics they've gotten out their water
Their wand?
water
Their water
wand,
witching.
water witching wand, and they've done their usual.
Yes.
Some
I-
background, some
Yeah, I s-
background on this. Balance has been working with this district on water source issues, oh my goodness, since the late 90s. When we were contemplating taking over the water district, Paul and I or Scott and I went and talked to Balance quite a bit to see if they thought there was water for us to find. And they are one of the preeminent hydrogeology firms that knows San Mateo County. They're just, their library, if you're interested in water and EIRs and that kind of thing, their library is just an amazing place. And then 2007, 2006, something like that, this district was working on a bill with Gene Mullen, who was in the assembly, to have all of that land go to state parks. And then state parks, with the approval of Coastal Commission, was going to sell it to us for what they paid Caltrans for it, which was the acquisition costs. And we were going to use it for water. So Balance put together this map of potential sources way back then. The reason that the board then was pursuing that route was because the county had allowed a house to go in with a septic system that was imprudently close to our Drake well. And we appealed it. First we had Mark Weishner and Barry Heck look at it, and they both said that the location of that septic system in relation to our well was going to lead to a potential, if not probable, contamination of our well with septic system effluent. We appealed it all the way to the Board of Supervisors, not asking to have the house stopped, but asking to have the septic system moved as far away as possible from our well so that we could lessen the odds of that kind of underground pollution going on, and the Board of Supervisors refused. And rather than take it to court or anything else, we just said, well, clearly the only folks who can take care of the water quality and who care about the water quality for Montara and Moss Beach is our board. And so that's where this has come from, and when Assemblyman Gordon was on the Board of Supervisors, he helped by giving an overlay on this as park, so that the likelihood of it being developed would be less. And then Clemens and Tanya have been working on these well locations and working with Caltrans so that we can ensure our water future for the life of this community. So that's how we got here, and that's why we have these points that have been mapped out. They were mapped out quite a while ago, and Barry and Mark have been reviewing them, and they are still very comfortable with what they've got.
Good.
It's
I might
really,
point out that as a result of that experience, the board did adopt an ordinance that regulates a separation between septic systems and well sources. So we have independently, within your own authority, addressed that issue. As Director Selector Carter pointed out, at that time when the Board of Supervisors wrote in favor of the construction, we did not have that regulation, but we do now.
Going back to these exploratory wells, first of all, I'm also very much in favor of the idea if it's needed to give you authority beforehand for more than 2 wells. The other one is just a sort of some question that you chose site A and B. A seems to be fairly close to Alta Vista, B seems to be fairly close to Drake. Why were those chosen, let's say, instead of the site F, which is by Hawthorne and First Street, which...
Oh, that's very easy, because site F is nowhere close to any of our pipes. Site
Okay,
A,
that's good.
site A and B are, site A is, essentially if you drive up Cedar Street, there's the forested section
Yeah,
right there to the left, in that area is site A. We have a main line going up there.
right,
However, what these sites are actually based on are fault lines.
okay,
So what we're looking for is geological structures. They're linear, geological linear structures.
right,
And we extend them and try to connect them and essentially try to be as close as possible to potential fault lines. So both of these sites are site A and site B are pretty far apart from each other. They might look close on this map,
yeah,
but if you think alone that Drake and Wagner are close to each other,
right,
right? And what you have to think about is how big is the cone of influence of the future well. And
right,
that's something that's really hard to determine in an aquifer that is, not homogeneous. It's very irregular, right? We're looking
Right.
at faults and cracks. So, what we're really trying to do is we're trying to tap into the same aquifer as the Alta Vista well, and we are in the vicinity. That's why we are also in this vicinity. We have good indications that this aquifer, extends further up into the Alamo region,
right,
and so that's pretty much one line between Alta Vista and that region. We're staying fairly close to what we know. We have experienced drilling more than just the Alta Vista well in this area.
right,
We have other wells that were drilled in the first exploratory phase that were also potential production wells, but weren't as significant as the Alta Vista well. What we're of course hoping for is something that, is usable, it's not interfering with any of our sources. And that was all considered when we looked at the sites.
Okay, so that part of it was access to existing infrastructure, but the other one was the fact that geologically you felt that A and B were our best wells, and I shouldn't say wells, exploratory drillings.
Yes,
That-
it's always, you're always taking a risk, it's always a chance that we don't find the water that we want to find.
Right.
But we essentially looked at this, originally my thought was to drill only one well, start with one well. And when we looked at this together, our goal was to find the best of these 5 wells. And we looked at the sites A and B and concluded that both are extremely favorable. So we are very hopeful that we find in both sites significant amounts of water.
Whereas like site F that I referred to, that Hawthorne and Fir, would be more of a long shot, geologically.
Well, it's also a good possibility, and that's why it's listed. I mean,
Right.
this is
I
kind of the
think it's
second
a-
round of assessments.
I think it's a constellation of what the highest likelihood and least cost is. So F would require a long pipe if it did pan out, and it's further away from our treatment plant too. But in looking for the very long term, if we tried a well at F and it came in at 100 or 150 gallons a minute, we'd certainly want to at least put it on our future development plans.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, what we haven't said yet here is that these are boreholes, means they're exploratory. They will be backfilled after we got the data that we need. So we're really exploring, looking for water, and this doesn't mean that we keep the hole open, that we build it out as a well at this time.
Okay.
Something I would like is a sign at both at the, the George Street, there's a trail that takes off up through that area, and a lot of people walk it. And I'd love to have a sign there, and maybe a sign on each site that's in process saying, this is your Montara Water and Sanitary District water dollars at work exploring sites for new water sources, something like that.
Yeah.
So because I think our public would be feel very positive about that.
Yes, we are actually required to put a notification up in the first place. But besides the official notification, we can also put a larger sign up.
Exactly.
Mhm.
So that these exploratory drillings, that the data that they'll give you is one, that there's water there, number 2 is how much water, number 3 will give you data as to how it influences other existing wells.
Not at this time. It depends a little bit. When we move forward, there is, if we find a borehole that is worth investigating,
Right.
I mean, we find water, then we have a number of tools available to assess essentially how this, how good of an option this is. It starts with running a caliper.
Yeah.
It starts with looking, at the conductivity, at a log with conductivity. We can lower a camera,
Mhm.
all those things. We might be able to also perform a pump test. But that's something that we have to decide at the time. It could be somewhat risky to lower down a pump in an open hole. That's what's required essentially to see if there's interconnectivity to other wells.
But by an open hole means there's no casing.
There's no casing in it. The upper sections, there will be a casing inserted, temporary casing inserted in
I know.
the upper
That's right.
sections.
Okay,
But everything below that will be open hole.
okay.
So in a pump test, I mean, there's something like a pump test done during the drilling process. The air that you introduce for the rotary drilling
Right.
is replacing the water. So you essentially see how much water comes out, and you can, that's what a good driller can tell you. This is a, 100 gallon per minute well, a 200 gallon per minute well. So a rough estimate.
Or a 10 gallon per minute well.
Or a 10 gallon per minute well, but that's what we don't want to hear. So a good driller can tell you, give you rough estimates on how good this source
Yeah, right.
will be. But to determine this, you need a pump test, and the pump test is quite time intensive. So it has to be as long as possible. We're talking about minimum 3 days pumping.
But that really goes back to your point of why we're picking them to drill this, is because we think that they have the experience. They can sort of intuitively say this borehole is indicating such and such, and they will know pretty much what they're talking about.
Right, exactly. I mean, there's much more that goes into it. For example, what we're looking here for is essentially crevices, faults,
Right.
open space, and a good driller feels that. They're always aware. They know this. They know what they're looking for. They can feel this while they're operating the machine,
Right.
for example, and can alert us to all those things. So there will be a geologist on site looking at the debris that comes up.
Yeah.
So we understand the geology, and they also have a lot of experience in things like conductivity of the water can give us indications of where are we in the aquifer, how deep are we, how good is the water quality. So there's a lot of information that can be gained during the drilling process, but the interconnectivity to the other wells is a question that's extremely difficult to answer ultimately, specifically in these aquifers.
And that's one of the reasons the Coastal Commission has put such strong environmental, not restrictions, conditions on us. Even with the Alta Vista well, we have to keep sampling and making sure it's not taking water out of what would have gone into Montara Creek, for instance.
Right.
A lot of places, a lot of other water districts don't have those kinds of conditions. But we're fortunate as our community likes the environment that we've got, that we have to.
So again, in a homogeneous media, you can calculate the cone of influence if you know the,
Right. Yeah.
the specifics of the material, and quite frankly, that's what you're used to in this case as well. There's no other way to consider the distance to other wells, and it's quite some ways from our other wells. So we don't expect any interference.
So, Bill, you probably know this, but Montara Mountain, the Montara granite was formed 260 million years ago, and it was part of the Tehachapi's
Right.
down by LA, way down by LA, and it has moved all this time up to where it is now. And the reason why Mark likes further up the hill is because the Montara granite is more solid up there than it's less solid down here. But the cracks, the big cracks, but it's because the granite is so old, 260 million years old, big cracks and big cracks have formed inside down there under the mountain. And these big cracks is what the drillers will find that are reservoirs of water. And those cracks are more significant and intact as reservoirs than they are under El Granada, for example.
Okay.
So further up is better placed.
El Granada is like a big bowl of sand.
Well, there's granite there too, but the granite is decomposed, where the Montara granite is intact from the Tehachapi. So it's the same granite as the Grapevine. You go up the
Yeah.
Grapevine, it's the same rock. It's just been moved up over 260 million years ago, all this time. So Mark, Mark Mark and with Clemens' help and the geologists know what they're doing.
Yeah.
as far as where to drill these wells.
For example, Drake and Wagner are in different aquifers. We're not looking for the type of water that we produce from the Drake and the Wagner well. We're looking for a deep water aquifer
Right.
that we found in Alton.
Maybe
still.
260.
Okay.
Maybe 220.
Okay, so to that, going back to that point about, the proposal is to give authorization for 2 wells, for a total of $60,000. But I'm hearing other board members saying, you know, that we may wanna sort of up that, right?
I'm just giving him the discretion. In fact,
Yeah.
if it's okay with you, I so move the motion that we give him discretion on 150.
Do you want to also include the other recommendation?
And the other requirements so stated by the manager.
I second the motion.
All right. I lost my pen, but we have a motion and a second.
It's in the binder.
I don't need,
Okay.
It's in the binder.
I don't need the
You're
pen to,
compromised.
act. I just feel lost without it. It's been moved and seconded that we approve, let me go use this. We waive the formal bidding requirements on the ground that the personnel and associated equipment for the work are available from a sole source and authorize up to $60,000 for 2 exploratory boreholes, or at the discretion of the manager, up to
150,
As budgeted.
as budgeted.
As budgeted.
I think that's-
up to 150 as budgeted.
Yeah.
Is that the motion that?
Yes.
And,
All right.
and it includes signs to inform the public on the site.
All right. Do we have any further discussion or comments from the public?
The essence of the motion actually is the higher figure of the
Yes,
discretion.
That's
Right.
the essence.
All right. And we can just do this with a normal vote?
Aye.
All in favor? Aye? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Clemens, congratulations. We've long had an interest in doing this. It's been board policy that we've been looking for more water. This is terrific. I'm really excited. Thank you, Caltrans, for the cooperation on this. And let's see what's under the ground.
Too bad you have to plug it off.
It makes it easier to re-drill it.
You know what you're in for. It's just dolomite, right? Okay, reports. Sewer Authority Mid-Coast Side.
Okay, we had a meeting on January 26th, Monday, and there are a couple of things that are very interesting that happened at that meeting. First of all, CCWD approved, adopted the guiding principles for recycled water that other agencies had previously approved without any changes. The water, Recycling Water Committee was going to meet and talk about what the next step is as far as the contract, with the possible contract with CCWD. I'll let Scott address that in a few minutes.
You're gonna take a few minutes.
I'll let him address that in a few minutes.
I can't wait.
Yeah, you'll have to wait.
All right.
The other thing is, a couple of business things that we did was, we ratified adoption of a salary schedule for unrepresented employees as required by CalPERS. We had to adopt some changes in the CalPERS contract for our employees, for SAM employees. We discussed giving the refund to the SAM member agencies. There was extra money. We discussed whether we should keep that money or just give it back right away. And there's some arguments to keep it because it's already there, here at SAM. Why give it back and then take it back again? But the board, most of the board members wanted to distribute it and then have the member agencies have more control over the future allocation. So the money is going back to the member agencies. We authorized the manager to purchase a waste heat exchanger. In the digester, there's heat produced with all the bacteria eating all the stuff. So that's like $35,000 for a exchanger and parts, and for them to come and do it, put it in. There was quite a bit of discussion about activities related to the Kehoe Water Course, and discussion about what that water course should be called. Apparently, isn't Half Moon Bay
Is that what's now known as the Kehoe Ditch?
the Kehoe Ditch?
Some call it that,
Creek.
but Director Warren pointed out that pictures going back into the mid-1800s made it very clear that it has always been a water course.
Okay.
It rains, water flows. It's kind of a natural thing that we actually rely on here for.
But at least we all know what we're talking about this way,
Yeah.
where it's at.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's adjacent to the neighborhood, and the neighbors have long been concerned that as straight as it is and as channelized as it is, when the water gets high and running fast, the bank erodes and it threatens their backyards, and they're concerned about flooding.
And the Half Moon Bay engineer and manager had taken the initiative to start meetings with the people and with Sam, and there was some discussion about that they should include the board, the SAM board, in those meetings, and the SAM board will be included in the future. And there was some lively discussion about that. Do you want to make?
I don't know if it was such lively discussion. Mostly I talked and they listened. So they contemplate projects. They have.
Wait, first of all, let's clarify. They
They.
is,
Oh, thank you. The city is looking into what to do about that water course, and they met with the neighbors to the north of the. I'm going to call it creek. It's much easier to say, and that's what it is. To the north of the creek, they met with them and presented 4 fairly well-developed proposals for what they might do about the creek, and everything from essentially armoring it to prevent it from eroding further, to turning it into kind of a natural water course that would wind across the property to the south and cross under the driveway, the sand driveway. That property to the south, interestingly enough, is owned by Sam. So the majority of the options they were talking about, in fact, I think all 4 options would directly involve property that they don't own, and they didn't invite anyone to the conversation. So I had asked that our general manager invite them to come to our meeting in hopes that they would come and share with us some of their ideas and engage us in constructive discourse about the problems they were trying to solve and how we might work together. They showed up, they told us that they had meetings, that they were going to have more meetings, that they were going to go off and decide what to do, and then they were going to come back and tell us. I expressed some concern about that approach.
Can I ask a dumb question? Aren't we automatically, Sam is automatically a party to that because they own the property?
Well, interestingly enough, I mean,
That's not a dumb question.
that's precisely the point that I had tried to convey before they showed up at the meeting. When they came to the meeting, they brought no printouts, they brought no slideshow. They did tell us, they did bring some information.
The city of Half Moon
City of
Bay.
Half Moon Bay did tell us, and here's the extent of the information that we learned about the alternatives. There are 4 of them. Even when asked, they were not forthcoming on the proposals. So we made the very specific request that we be invited to all the meetings and that we start engaging constructively, because frankly we'd like to work with them. We have for some time been discussing the possibility of potentially relocating the creek fully onto the Sam property, allowing it to wind more like a natural creek does, allowing the water to flow more slowly to avoid the scouring that you get when you channelize it. It is an endangered species habitat, and that creek is important to the species. It's got red-legged frogs and San Francisco garter snakes. So we've got strong environmental reports making that very clear. So I've had some discussions with individuals at the Coastal Conservancy, and they've expressed some interest about perhaps funding some of this to improve the waterway that's there.
Mhm.
And if we were to do that, that would take it away from the neighbors' properties, lessening their concerns about flooding or scouring or loss of their backyards and so forth. So it's something that we've long had some ideas about pursuing. We've got an opportunity now to engage the city, and I hope that we're able to find a way to work together on this, because I do think the more of us engaged on this, the better the project will be.
All right, and then we also voted for a new chair for the SAM board, and that is Rick Lohman. And the vice chair is Debbie Ruddick. And who was the treasurer, secretary treasurer? I forgot who that was.
I wish I could forget.
I think it was you.
Yeah, it was me.
And then we talked about because we've had trouble between the Valamar the Valamar and the Montara pump station, the IPS. We've had some breaks and some spills, and we had one during that big storm. And here's a picture of the bottom of the pipe in that section, and it shows we've seen a section of this pipe previously, and with the grit on the bottom of the pipe gets chugged along, and it grinds holes in the bottom of the pipe. And we discussed whether we should retain SRT consultants to finish a project which we had given them direction to complete previously, but to go ahead and do it now. And that is to replace the IPS between Valamar and Montara, and also a third reinstallation of a third pump at the Montara pump station. And we had discussion about giving this back to SRT to finish, because they did just a great job on the other IPS work. There was some debate as to whether that should be given to SRT and should be given to someone else, or there should be more open bidding. But we made the point that, and I made the point initially that SRT is the one that designed and produced the wet weather project, and in the last big storm in December, saved SAM $2 million in fines by having that wet weather project, which was done under budget and ahead of schedule. That wet weather project, plus the Walker tank, and here's a picture of the Walker tank filling up almost to capacity.
Well, on this one,
The storm here, the storm in December. So that wet weather project in the under the Burnham Strip and the Walker tank together saved us at least $2 million in fines and overflows, and saved Half Moon Bay Beach, Surfers Beach, from being spoiled. And so
And we'd like to point out that
go ahead and say it, Scott.
Rick Kowalczyk was ecstatic that the beaches were saved from
Rick
being
Kowalczyk.
spoiled by
excuse
overflows.
me, I need to go to the room for that.
Rick Kowalczyk is very keen on protecting the beaches, we pointed out that SRT had saved us a lot of money and has already been given permission to do the project a year and a half ago. So the board voted to give SRT consultants in the amount not to exceed $99,520 to have an emergency replacement of the IPS pipe between Montara and Valamar pump stations, and to reinstall reinstallation of a third pump at the Montara pump station. So that was done.
So Valamar is right over here. Montara, is that the one that's over?
No, that's right here.
It's right
Okay.
here.
You're
Yeah.
sitting on it.
Okay, so bring me up to speed on this. Don't we own that?
No. The line between this pump station and the next pump station, that's all owned by SAM.
Okay.
So
And Valamar pump station is owned by us, strangely enough.
So,
It's the only injector
just
station.
a very brief history, when SAM was formed, shotgun wedding forced upon us by the county, between three agencies, all of whom had treatment facilities. It was because of the shotgun marriage, we had to have a single facility, and through the machinations of the county and the formation of the Fitzgerald Marine Reserve, we had an outfall that worked fine for us, but they defined the boundaries just to make sure that we couldn't actually treat it here. So it was decided that everything would go down to Half Bay, and the plant there would be fitted out to handle all three agencies. So infrastructure had to be built to get it there, but that infrastructure was only necessary because the three agencies were working together. So the infrastructure was built using, I believe, federal funds, and then was donated or accepted by the three agencies, under the aegis of SAM. And SAM has the responsibility for the full intertie pipeline system, that collection system, which includes about 7 miles of pipes and pumps, and that starts here in the run up to Valmar.
Okay, so they own this tank, but we own
Well,
Valmar pump station.
technically, we allow them to use the tank that's on our property. It's an interesting one where we thought long and hard about whether to, when we made it available for SAM to use, we thought long and hard about whether or not to sell it to SAM, charge SAM, whatever. And what we decided was that it made a whole lot more sense, since we were working partners, to say, we have it, let's share it with SAM. And hope for the best as we do things in the future, that we'll find other ways where an agency that has something just shares it. And for a few years, we were wondering if we'd ever see reciprocation, but when it came time to do the wet weather facility in Granada said, we've got the land, we'll share the land. So 2 out of the 3 now have stepped up and said, we've got something, we're just going to contribute it to the business here. So
Well, and to be honest, the SAM plant is on land that's owned by the city of Half Moon Bay. So
right.
they were the first ones to step forward.
That's true.
Okay, so who's responsible for the maintenance of this?
So SAM is responsible for the maintenance. The
Okay.
care and upkeep of
So
the
then,
walker tank.
by implication, they're also responsible for the maintenance of the Valmar pump station?
No, the Varimar pump station is owned by this district, owned and maintained.
Okay,
Now, we contract with SAM at present to maintain that pump station.
okay.
But that's our responsibility, and we could have them do it, or we could do it ourselves, or contract it to SPS, or whoever.
But that's something that I fail to understand, why we own this pump station, because or injector station, because the Portola pump is, for example, Portola is owned by SAM. Is that right?
No,
Yes.
is it?
Yes.
It's owned by SAM.
Princeton.
Oh, yeah, no, Portola is definitely,
Portola is
Right.
owned by
That's right.
SAM. Princeton is owned by Granada. Is that right?
no, it's owned by SAM.
I think
No,
it's
because the
Granada.
SAM board had to vote to allow the lab to be set up for the water sampling at the beaches. I believe it's a SAM facility.
I think we need a map with some
Okay,
colors.
But Jim, the
So
long and the
maybe-
short of it is they find that it was agreed
You can explain that to me.
SRT would do the engineering on
right.
it.
Oh, yeah.
And so that's now under process
Yeah.
of being,
Regardless of who owns the various pumps, they're all temporarily owned and run by SAM, and they're part of the SAM-owned intertie system, and SAM is responsible for operation and maintenance of the system and replacement.
One thing that's
okay,
confusing.
so they're
for-
gonna replace the pipe then from here over to Valmar?
Right, right.
Okay, now, as part of that, how does that affect that whole issue of all those residents along Valmar currently have gravity flows from the laterals
That's
into the
right.
mains?
That's right.
Does this have is this a totally unrelated issue?
No,
It,
it's not.
it could be unrelated if all we wanted to do was replace the force main. But
Well, I mean, my hope in this is, and that is what I've discussed with the SAM manager, is that if SAM decides to, there are two ways to go about this. Either rehabilitate the existing pipe, and the
Okay.
question is this something that can be done? I mean, the pipe is a pressurized pipe.
Yep, okay.
Or put a new pipe alongside it. And there is it's quite tricky because Weimar is full with utilities. But if SAM would go the route of essentially putting a new pipe in, which probably makes most sense for them,
Right.
then there's a chance for us to take over the old pipe and rehabilitate the old existing pipe and turn it into a gravity main that can serve the homes on Weimar.
Ooh, that would be a good idea.
This is a long-standing problem, as you know,
Yeah,
that we've
yeah.
been trying to address, and here's a really interesting opportunity.
Okay,
Lou,
okay.
how long
Lulu,
does that problem go?
Let's get Lulu.
Yeah, so
Lulu, go ahead.
To answer his question, Bill's question, when they built the Montara plant, this was before SAM,
Right,
they got sewage coming, gravity flow down to what was then called the Chart House Pump Station,
right,
which we rebuilt when I first got on the board, okay?
okay,
Then the rest, that's from Montara. The stuff from Moss Beach came down to a line that's behind the homes on Valleymar, along the bluff, into something called Niagara. There's a little pump station at the face of Niagara Street
okay,
here. And it pumps it over a little hill into this plant, so that you had all the sewage in Montara and Moss Beach coming into this plant. Okay, and that's the Walker tank.
right.
Okay, when they formed SAM, SAM took over what the building that had all the equipment that operated the Walker tank, but not the Walker tank. And they built a pump station there to pump all of our sewage down pipe, the intertie, to Portola Pump Station, and then on into Half Moon Bay to the treatment plant.
Right,
Okay? In a storm in 82, 83, took out 5 feet of the bluff behind some of the homes on Valleymar, exposing our pipe. There was a battle over which came first, whether our pipe was leaking or it was leaking after it was exposed.
right,
And so in order to prevent this district being hit with huge fines, we moved that line that came along behind and put it into the Valleymar pump station. That's why we own the Valleymar pump station. We're responsible for the Valleymar pump station. Now,
What do you mean you moved the line? I'm sorry.
there
Because
was
the line is still
that
there.
brought the sewage from Moss Beach, went along the bluff.
There's still an
Oh,
old,
yeah, the line is still there.
The line is
We
still there.
can't- And the problem has been that we can't pay for these people
Right.
that live along there to convert
right.
the grinder pumps and pump it up the street, up the hill, under their homes or beside their homes, to a line in Valleymar Street, okay? And so that's why we've been blocked from doing that. We wanted to get away, there's 200,000 gallons a day going down through that pipe into the plant. And so they wanted to avoid having a spill, the next bluff could wipe it out, okay? The next failure, the bluff could wipe out the pipe. And so we built the Valleymar pump station, diverting the sewage from all of Moss Beach except for the 20 homes along Valleymar.
Yes.
And so that's why we own the Valleymar. Now, what I would like to know is we had, at that time, supposedly one of the best in the country of sewer engineers, and they designed this thing. Why didn't they design it so that the two pumps were compatible? Because that's what causes this problem. When a Valleymar pump station comes on, the pump, it shuts down the Montara pump station, which is the SAM pump. And you get, what happens is a backing up of the sewage that's in the pump from the Montara to in the intertie, and that's what's wearing out, is this constant backing of one and then starting it again with the grit in the bottom of the pipe, cutting holes right through the pipe. And why didn't they balance, or why can't they balance the two pump stations so they operate together the way they should to eliminate that backing and forward? Maybe they can't, but that's what causes the pipe to grind down. And I think it'll continue as long as you have that imbalance between the two pumps.
Well, part of the plan is to build more vacuum valves that take out the pressure from inside the force main, the vacuum, and allowing less force to be pushing through. That's part of the contract, is to put these vacuum valves in, or more of them.
Well, we've switched out to VFDs too, right?
Yeah, exactly. We have soft starting VFDs now that they just kick on. For example, we just did that recently. Yes.
Yeah. It sounds like a good discussion to have with our engineer.
Yeah,
Now that you get some of this
we
history.
have the discussion ongoing, but that's a little bit to the problematic.
Right.
By the way, the line itself is the line on the strand down below is in perfect condition. I mean, it was TV'd. I walked it just after the storm. It's completely covered. There are no issues with the line. There's an issue with the bluff.
Right.
So
Well, it's not an issue with the bluff. This is what bluffs do.
This is what the California
It's
Coast
behaving
does.
as bluffs
Right.
behave. But, well, all right,
Right,
so.
and that's why we're interested in this pipe up there, so if this can be
Right.
turned into a gravity main, then at least there would be something, where they can tie into without having to
Right.
inject into the force main.
Right.
But, and the other implication is the homeowners along that stretch don't have to put ejector pumps in.
No, they would have to,
Yeah.
they would have to put grinder pumps that pushes it up into the gravity main.
Now, this should not be news to anyone on that stretch.
Except for
Right.
the
No.
people who just moved in there.
Now, there's a second function, however, that this line on the strand has, and that is, it still serves as a backup.
Right.
For example, if Sam has a leak on Weimar main, they have to shut down the Weimar pump station, and they can do that by reverting to the old model and letting all the sewage run through that main to
Up
the
to
Montara
Niagara.
station.
Yeah.
So there's a second purpose that we would lose if we would go that route.
Only
But
if we
it's-
only if we abandon that line.
If we, yes,
We can leave it plumbed in.
Okay.
until,
So it's interesting times at Sam.
And this is just a short
Recycle
version
wall.
of the discussion that's been happening since 1983. Wait until the room is full of 20 people.
I think on the recycled water meeting, we're gonna get together, we're gonna discuss next steps. I don't know if there's a lot to say
Okay,
until we
that's
actually
fine.
meet.
Okay.
Do we
Yeah.
know when that meeting's gonna happen?
Soon, I think we picked a date.
Do you know what that date is? I'm not aware of
Well, this
That's
is,
right, Dwight,
this
you're
is just
doing
for
the committee,
the,
aren't
no,
you?
no,
it. Well, I know.
no, this is just for the samples, and then once we meet, then we'll start pulling in the other parties.
This is a recycling water part.
Right,
So why is the Sam folks not meeting with the larger group?
because we need to meet amongst ourselves first,
Why?
to take a look at the work that has already been done, and is on file, and see how much of that we can, look at using to accelerate our process going forward. So it's to meet with our manager and, to take a look at what we've got at hand that we can offer.
Yeah, but I don't understand why you can't do that with the whole group committee.
Because we decided to do it this way. No, frankly, it doesn't make a lot of sense to open it way up until we've actually done our
Well-
work. And
Dwight,
this is-
you
this is our
understand the
homework.
rule of thumb, that the more people there are in a meeting, the less productive it is. so-
Well, we're only talking about a matter of two, and I'm not gonna lay my body over the sword on that, but this group was meant to work as a group.
Well, I want to be really clear. So with my SAM hat on, SAM as an agency has responsibility to tend to SAM's responsibilities. And when we talk about getting into contract with other parties, and here we're talking about two other water agencies, Sam actually needs to be of one mind on this, and our board has asked us to bring back to them what our current available resources are to be able to take to the meetings with the potential partners.
So just realize that the board has total control over the outcome of that committee. And my only thought on that process is that if you have a committee to provide guidance in that area, you should be using that committee consistently with all its membership. And
So let me be really clear, the water agencies are not members of the committee
or not.
and never have been.
Well, that's news to me.
We've been very particular about the language. We have been inviting the water agencies to meet with the committee, but we've been very precise with
That has not been my understanding from you.
That is precisely what we've done.
I'm just saying to you, Scott, that is not my understanding of how I was invited to this group. So I would recommend going forward that, I mean, first of all, I don't want to be involved in a committee that doesn't have full responsibility of what a committee should do. And secondly, that wasn't my understanding of how I was invited to that group to participate. And thirdly, the SAM board has total control of the outcome anyway, because anything we do has to be voted on by that board as a finale.
Mhm.
So I'm just suggesting that we either use this group as a committee, which was my understanding of it, or call it what it is, because right now it is not being.
Can I help out?
Yeah.
Well,
No, I see your point, Dwight. No, the purpose of the committee meeting without the CCWD is so that.
And without Montara.
Without Montara, without CCWD, is to make sure that we know what we're doing before, we know what we're all doing, what the board wants to do, before we talk about a contract with CCWD for phase one. We don't want to go and discuss with CCWD the contract until the SAM board members and the general manager agree what the contract should consist of and how it should work.
Yeah, so I hear what you're trying to do. I'm strongly suggesting you use your process better, because you can, as a SAM board, can simply do that within the SAM board structure.
Well, and that's what we're
That's what we're
doing.
doing.
The SAM board
But
has
the
asked
way
the
you-
committee.
But the way you articulated it, this is fine finessing. All I'm saying is there's this group, which was the committee of 5, 3 of the SAM, 2 for the water, that was supposed to be working together on this project. That's what we were brought into it. And I don't, at the end of the day.
I'm sorry that it wasn't clear, but what this actually is a SAM committee that has invited the water agencies and the water agency managers and a representative from the water agency to participate in joint meetings. And all of the wording that we've been using has been joint meeting. And this goes back historically to a prior round where there was insistence on a water agency being a full member of the committee and having voting powers and so forth, and it got very complicated. And in order to try to keep things, keep the relationships clear, SAM is SAM, has a committee. SAM meets with the 2 water agencies in a joint meeting. But we've got some homework to do as SAM to see what we have on file and can put on offer as a way to accelerate the project. And the whole point of this is to accelerate the project.
Yeah, okay, we're on the same page. I'm not gonna repeat myself again. I think the presentation of that, at least from my understanding of it, that's not how it was presented.
Let me mention that you know, in all fairness, I had some great difficulty with the way that the meetings were called I did not think that the process that was followed was actually a process that was going to lead to some clarity on this. There was direction given that sometimes did not happen. We had actually called for a meeting of the SAM committee on at least 2 occasions where all parties were invited, and that actually we managed to get through that without that being too disruptive. But we actually had homework that we needed to do before we brought everybody in, and that means we had to scramble to try to be ready, but not in a way that we had actually contemplated. And I apologize for that confusion, but that was
Okay.
the water under the bridge, I guess, but,
Well, again, I would just recommend to the SAM group, be very careful with how you handle and structure these committees.
Mhm.
Because the way, and I'm just repeating myself for the umpteenth time, it was clearly stated to me this was a committee process run by this group as a joint committee. So, you know, I would either.
the committee chairman did not have the authorization to represent it that way, and that's where that came from. And I had issue with that. And- But we managed to have collegial meetings nonetheless, and that was a good thing. So
And we have a
we
new,
made the best of it.
committee chairman, by the way. There's a new committee chairman. For the
Well, the other
recycled water.
committee chairman is no longer elected by the city of Half Moon Bay,
Right.
but other than that little detail.
If
But
it would've-
I would recommend very strongly that when and if the five of us get back together, that we identify the rules of engagement, because it's clearly changed since I had my first meeting with you guys.
Your point taken, Dwight. I don't think it has changed, but the process is running smoothly, and Scott will report to the SAM board and in turn to this board in due time.
Okay, Midcoast Community Council meeting.
I don't know.
Okay,
I
we can
haven't
move on
been
to
following
CSD
it.
report.
Yeah, but let me go back to the MCC. I just sent their chair, Dave Olson, a question. The county is moving forward with this community choice aggregation, and they're having a meeting on February 24th from the Sustainability Office to talk about the results and whether it's feasible to go forward. It's about the county, Marin and Sonoma are two counties in California that have already done it, coming together to find a way to give users of electrical power a choice on where it comes from. And then the county would look towards finding more environmentally friendly, greener ways to generate that power. Our electricity bill is up close to $40,000. And so it's something I'd like to see this district working with the county on, and I'll get you the information. But that's something that the county is working on. The other things that are going on with the MCC are the Princeton plan,
The big wave.
Big Wave, and they set out their tasks for next year, and unfortunately I can't remember, and I stayed for the whole meeting. So, that's that on MCC. They did have their retreat, and those are the issues pretty much they're working on. CSDA report, our most recent meeting, which was Tuesday, the major point of discussion started out, should the Special District Association write a letter to LAFCO in regards to the municipal service review for the Harbor District, given that the Harbor District has changed its board significantly. But the RFP for the municipal service review had gone out, and in a 4-to-1 vote, LAFCO decided to accept one of the bids. There were 3 bids. One was for $11,000. Those people weren't qualified. One was for $37,000, and the next bid was for $60,000. So at our board meeting, as president, I allow a fairly free-ranging discussion, and what we decided to do was actually commit some member time and energy towards raising questions at the next LAFCO meeting and at the next LAFCO budget, because as you saw from our mid-year report, we pay a fair amount of money to LAFCO, and LAFCO is funded 1/3 from special districts. allocated to what your gross revenues are. 30% to cities and 30% to the county. And the budget has jumped significantly over the years. And so what we've decided to do is ask questions about what relationship, if any, is between the grand jury and LAFCO, because it appears that LAFCO decided to do the municipal service review for the Harbor District based on a grand jury recommendation. Some of us were going, there's no real connection. And others are saying, one recreation district has had 3 municipal service reviews since they started, and some areas have had no municipal service reviews. This is the 2nd municipal service review for the Harbor District. And so we're raising questions, we're collecting the questions, and then what's going to happen is that we're going to give them to our special district representatives, Joe Sheridan and Josh Cosgrove, and ask them to bring these questions up at the LAFCO meeting. What will be coming up is the LAFCO budget on March, I think it's March 3rd, for some reason that sticks in my head. And so we're going to be asking folks from special districts to attend that meeting so that we can ask questions about what good our money is being used for.
Catherine, who approves the LAFCO budget?
The LAFCO board
Approves their own budget?
approves their own budget. It's kind of like we approve our
But
own
they
budget.
approve the
It's
amount?
put together, yeah, they approve
The
the
amount.
amount, and it's put forth by the, what's her title, LAFCO
Executive.
Executive Director,
Officer.
Executive Officer, something like that, Martha Poyatos.
Right.
And essentially, it pays for her salary, a part-time salary, and then for these other administrative and municipal service reviews.
So they decide how much money comes in from those 3 sections? How much money is taken? The board itself, the LAFCO board itself?
Yeah. They decide what they need, and then the LAFCO board approves it, and the LAFCO board is made up of 1 public member, who's an ex-city council member, 2 city council members, one of whom was Naomi Patridge until she decided not to run again, 2 special district, special district association members, and one is North Coast County Water, that's Josh Cosgrove, and the other is Joe Sheridan, I think he's Broadmoor Police. And then 2 members of the Board of Supervisors, which is Adrian Tissier and Don Horsley. So there's a lot of questions, because needless to say, the folks from the special districts would rather spend our money on our services and our district needs.
So when is the budget discussion?
I will let you know for sure. March 3rd is when I think it is.
Okay.
Okay, CCWD and CCWD committee report.
So no news really. We are awaiting response from Coastside County Water District on a request for a meeting, and I suggest I follow up on the request, the meeting request, to see where they are.
Attorney's report.
No.
Director's reports. You're up next after that. General manager report.
Yes, so 2 things. First, I think it was pretty notable that there was some joint work from Sam and Montara out at the highway, and I just wanted to clue everyone in. This was originally started out as a...
I should have said I was the manager that night, shouldn't I? When they, this is a little story behind it.
I continued last night again, but without biking. So this was started out as a potential sewer leak, and it was dug up because it was a small puddle right on top of the force main, turned into turned out it was actually a water leak. And it was quite an affair to get this fixed. We sometimes, most of the times we're lucky on leaks, and they're, we can handle them within a day. This one was complicated. It was in the Caltrans right of way, which means there's Caltrans inspectors that once in a while show up and take a look at what we're doing. There are specific requirements. We can't leave a hole open overnight. We can't use steel plates or anything like that.
Wow.
So there was a sewer main very close by. Actually, the water main and sewer mains were touching, so there was a constant constant observation by SAM needed. So it was a rather complicated situation that is, quite frankly, still ongoing. The leak is fixed. The leak is backfilled at this point, but we haven't energized the main at this point. So that's we're gonna probably do this tomorrow.
So where's the flow going?
The other way. It's not affecting any customers. We have an opportunity to, and this was really also, that was luck, because it wasn't a 90, which means it has to be restrained. There's a kicker required right there. Otherwise, this pipe would pull apart right away if this wouldn't be restrained. And pouring a kicker is, and that's a significant kicker that's required, is something that takes, at least 24 hours until that concrete is set, until they can handle the probably hundreds of thousands of pounds of pressure that are pulling in that direction. A 10-inch main at 120 psi, and so someone can do the math, but I'm certain it's getting in the 100,000 pounds
Wow.
of pressure that we're talking about. So the other item that I want to bring up is that we've received notice from Coastside County Water District that they have released their environmental impact report for review. It's up on their website.
And this is for,
This is the Denison San Vicente
San Vicente.
Environmental Impact Report. So they have posted 2 substantial reports. One is a response to is a response to all questions. It's a listing of all comments that were submitted, and essentially giving answers to those questions. And the second packet is a final EIR. They have now a review period, I can maybe call this, of 10 days. Starting February 2nd, on the 11th, they plan to adopt, and Dave, you might help me out, what is it? Adopt and certify the EIR?
Right.
Is that the language?
I'm sorry, what was that date?
11th.
February 11th.
Really?
Next week, yes.
That seems quick.
Well, that's what was my initial reaction as well. It is not a comment period. It is a period where they essentially circulate the document before they adopt the document, and actually they also plan to approve the project.
Because they've already responded to the questions, right? They've already
Yeah,
had-
the comment
Well,
period is
I
closed.
can't answer it this time because we have to look at
We
the
don't know yet
document.
whether they
I mean, I
responded or
looked
not.
at it,
Yeah.
But I mean, short of litigation, from their part, it's a fait accompli.
Yes, the certification completes the CEQA review period. And after that, my recollection is the 30-day statute of limitations to bring in a lawsuit against under the California Environmental Quality Act. So it's as Clemens mentioned, the 10-day period is mainly for purposes of circulating the final environmental impact report to responsible agencies and interested parties.
So Clemens, who are the responsible and interested agencies that may be concerned?
Well, we were actually identified as an interested, responsible agency party to this in the first round. They have now essentially included everyone who submitted comments, if those were public agencies or private citizens, or prior identified responsible parties. They have, it's my understanding that they've now circulated back to everyone who has an interest in this.
Is there any agency that may ask for, may be concerned at this point?
Well, I get a chance to start looking at this, and what I'm seeing, there was Fish and Wildlife, or Fish and Game, Fish and Wildlife had an interest in this. The county parks had an interest in this as well. They apparently had plans to, read something about that, they had plans to restore the stream. The center stream go into the Fitzgerald Marine Reserve. I've seen the Committee of Green Foothills respond. I've seen, there were 2 or 3 other agencies. And then a number of private parties like Randy Dardanelle, who attended our meeting, for example. So there were quite a number of comments, actually, that I wasn't aware of before.
Okay. So that's on the CCWD website.
I'm actually on it now. It's there. It's got it's volume 1, volume 2.
Right, volume 1 is what I'm talking about right now, the comments essentially, and addressing the comments. And volume 2 is the revised environmental impact report, which
Okay.
I haven't had a chance to look at, but
Okay.
apparently it means that there were revisions done.
Okay.
I asked Mark Weichner to review the hydrogeology sections.
Great.
Anything else?
That's it, thank you.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Hearing no objections, we're adjourned at 9:53.